Welcome back from spring break, everyone. I hope you weren't too bored not taking notes, because guess what? You're taking notes today. So, we talked before spring break about how population sizes change. Sometimes they go up and sometimes they come down. If a lot of organisms are born, or if a lot of organisms die, maybe there was a drought or a disease that ran through the population. That's going to increase or decrease the number of people in the population. So there's another factor that limits how big a population can get, and that's called a limiting factor. It's nice and easy. It is an environmental factor that causes a population to stop growing or decrease in size. It's going to limit something. So I'm sure you have limits on yourself. I know growing up, my parents limited my brother and I to 2 hours of video games a day. So that's a limit. Maybe you're really into shoes and your grandparents say, hey, we're going to buy you all the shoes you want, but your limit is 50 pairs. So we'll buy you new shoes all the time, but if we buy you 51, you got to get rid of 1 pair. Or maybe you get limited with the amount of soda you're allowed to drink in a day. Or maybe you limit yourself on the amount of gum you chew because you get a lot of cavities. There are limits all over the place. So limits in nature, warning about that picture. Limits in nature include weather, space, food, and water. So we're going to kind of break all these down, but I'm going to touch on them all right now, just real quick here. So limiting factors can be weather. So think of it this way, you are a mammal with no fur. You have hair on your head and your body, but you don't really have fur. So you were kind of limited where you could live. Humans are the only organisms on Earth that wear clothing. So it's going to get weird. Pretend you have no clothing. Would you survive in Antarctica? No. Would you survive in the middle of the Sahara Desert? No. It's way too hot. You'd get sunburnt. You would thirst to death. It would not be good. So, same thing here. If we took a penguin, or we took a sea lion, a walrus, or a polar bear, and we put them here in the middle of Virginia, weirdly enough, they might actually heat up too much, and they might kind of sweat to death. Or maybe they need water. Sea lions, they don't really maneuver themselves real well on land. They are built for water, so they're going to die just because they can't really move. So that's a limit in weather. A limit in space. So think of your house. Okay, you might have a 3-bedroom house. You might have a 1-bedroom apartment. Who knows? There is a limit to how many people can live in there. If you have a 1-bedroom, hopefully you're not putting more than 2 people in there. You never know. Right? You can't fit in Grandma, Grandpa, your mom, and her 3 sisters. All of them have 2 kids, but your mom specifically has 3 kids. So that's like 100 people right there. I'm not good at math, that's why I don't teach it. But that's at least 100 people. That's too many, okay? There's also a limit on how many, dogs I can have. I have 1 dog right now, because my house is, kind of big, but it's not super big. I certainly could not have 20 dogs, because I would not have the space for it. Food and water is a little bit easier. Think of the vending machine in the cafeteria. If there's only 5 switches left, well, guess what? Only the first 5 people are going to get them. There's a limit to how much you're going to drink that day or how much you're going to eat that day. Maybe you're really into Rice Krispies. There's only 7 left. Okay, so same thing here. These lionesses, they have killed a zebra and they're eating her or him, but there's a limit. They can't invite the whole entire family over because then they might only get a bite or 2. If they only invite these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lionesses, they're all going to eat. They're all going to have full bellies. It's going to be a good day. So let's break them down just a little bit more. I kind of already broke them all down though. So temperature and the amount of rainfall can limit where organisms can or cannot live. A cold spring may kill the young of many species, including birds and mammals. So a lot of times animals in nature will plan their babies to have them when it's nice out. I live on a cow farm. Not a lot of my cows have babies in the middle of winter. It's just very hard to keep a baby warm and alive and fed when it's very cold and there's no grass to eat. So a lot of my cows will have their babies in the spring or in the summer so that they have all spring or summer to raise that baby. So kind of what I said earlier, if you take a walrus out of its really, really cold area, it might actually overheat. So rare destructive events like tornadoes, hurricanes, and floods can disturb entire communities of organisms. And these can actually leave negative effects for many, many years. So a really nasty tornado like this might rip up all of the grass, the trees, the shrubs, the houses. It might even float a cow away. Who knows? Okay. But this is certainly limiting. Trees that live in Florida, where they get a lot of hurricanes, they actually have special adaptations that help them survive in Florida. They have super strong roots. Their leaves are kind of collapsible, so the wind doesn't have so much to grab onto. They just have adaptations that our trees don't. Our little pine trees and our little oak trees and maple trees, they would blow away like a feather in the wind down there. No good. Floods. A lot of areas flood. Especially if you live kind of coastal or near a big river, that needs adaptations too. Animals that live in the ground, worms and groundhogs, obviously. Some bears that hibernate, squirrels, they kind of have a little den sometimes in the ground. They all need to adapt to be able to move if there is a flood. Worms would drown if it stayed in the ground, so it has to, I'm a poet. They would drown if they're on the ground, so they need to actually move out of the way so that they're going to continue to survive. So animals and plants both have adaptations to survive here. Space is another limiting factor, so seabirds need nesting space, on the rocks near the ocean. If there is no more space, they cannot make babies. Okay, so space is both an issue for plants and animals. Like I'm saying with humans, if you live in a 3-bedroom house, hopefully you're not having more than 6-ish people live there. Now, if all 72 of your cousins move in, that's no good. You're going to be fighting for space. You're going to be fighting for the potty. You're going to be fighting for beds. You're going to be fighting for just watching TV room. Animals in nature do the same thing. If there's only 2 really good trees to build a den in for a little squirrel, then maybe only 2 squirrels can live in there. Or maybe they kind of share, but they're not going to be able to support a whole bunch. For plants, too. Plants need space to get their roots down into the ground so that they can obtain or get water. So plants actually fight over space as well. They'll shoot out their roots really, really wide to try and hoard all of that water. Oh, look at that. Plants take up a lot of space with their roots. If they cannot obtain enough water, nutrients, or sunlight, they will not survive. The leaves may block necessary sunlight. Okay, so think of it this way. I am just I'm a lot bit taller than Miss Sewell. Okay. So if I wanted to beat her in basketball, it'd be pretty easy. I can just go up, I can get them rebounds, I can shoot those layups. It's gonna be great, okay? Because she's tiny and she can't block me. That is kind of the same thing that what plants do. If I have 2 plants and one is tall like me and one is short like Miss Sewell, then guess which one's going to win? Me. That plant. Tall plant. Because I get the most sunlight, okay? Sunlight obviously is very crucial for photosynthesis for flowers. So let's look here. There's not a whole lot of sunlight that's reaching the ground. Sure, there's some patches. You can see a pretty good sunlit patch right here, a good bit back here. But a lot of this is very dark. It's very shaded. So in this community, what's going on here is the trees are competing for the sunlight, and they're winning. Okay, the trees are me, tall Miss Riddle. So they're blocking all the sunlight. They're absorbing all of that sunlight. And then there's little tiny Miss Sewell right here, maybe a little right here, so tiny. Oh, right here. She's so tiny. And she's getting a little bit of sunlight. You see, it's green, but she's not getting enough to grow big and tall like I am. So plants compete for sunlight along with food and water, obviously. So food and water are necessities for life. They can also be limiting factors. All animals need to eat a certain amount of food. Oh my gosh, typo! Oh my gosh, I'm gonna fix that! Certain amount of food a day. So an example is 10 pounds of leaves for every 1 buffalo. Okay, so I just made that up. Who knows? Okay, so maybe a buffalo needs to eat 10 pounds of leaves a day. If the environment cannot support these needs, the animal will not survive. So, I'm going to click, I might mess this up. Okay. So, if there are only 30 pounds of leaves in the savanna, then that means there can only be 3 buffalo in that area. Okay, because they're going to need to share. They're going to say, all right, I eat this 10 pounds, you eat this 10 pounds, and you eat this 10 pounds. So that is a little bit of competition there. If that fourth buffalo comes in, that really can become an issue because most likely 1 or 2 of those buffalo are going to die. So I think that's fairly easy. I need to remember to fix that typo. Hold on, let me fix it right. All right, there was no typo there. There never was. Isn't that cool? So, oh my god. The largest population that an area can support is called its carrying capacity. So that's what I was getting at with those buffalo on the last slide. If there are 30 pounds of leaves, and each buffalo needs to eat 10 pounds, that means there can be 3 buffalo. Okay, that's not too difficult. So that's just called its carrying capacity. It's how many animals an area can carry. So I like to think of it this way. I live by myself, so I have no help when I go to the grocery store. And I buy a lot of food because I'm very hungry. Most of it's Oreos. When I come home and I have all my groceries in the trunk of my car, I have a certain carrying capacity. I have a certain amount of groceries that I am able to carry and still walk into my house correctly. I can carry 5 bags of groceries on my right arm. I can carry 2 bags of groceries on my left arm and a gallon of milk. Okay, so I got 5 bags, I got 2 bags, and a gallon of milk. So my carrying capacity is 7 bags plus a gallon of milk. Miss Sewell might have a bigger or smaller carrying capacity, and you guys might have a bigger or smaller carrying capacity too. Maybe you're lazy and you can only carry 1 little small bag. But maybe you're big and macho and I'm gonna carry all the groceries, and you carry all 12 of them for your family. Okay, that's called its carrying capacity. It's the size of a population, and it might vary slightly, but it will typically stay very close. So there might be a freak week where I decide I'm going to carry 10 bags this week. It's going to be great. And then I wake up the next morning and my arms hurt, and they're very sore. So my carrying capacity typically is about 7 bags on average, but it might go up or down depending on the week. Okay, so here's a nice graph. Look at this graph. It's nice. The independent variable is our time. The dependent variable is our population size. So this dotted line is our carrying capacity. What it's saying is we can support about this many organisms. And notice how it goes up and down just a little bit every now and then. But for the most part, it stays right around that carrying capacity. So maybe in this picture, we're looking at birds. And birds need to put a nest in a tree. So because there's only 100 trees in the little forest, that means we can only support this many birds. There's going to be a limit. We can't have unlimited birds because they're not going to be able to nest anywhere. And we don't want to have too little birds because that's just no fun. Okay, so carrying capacity, think of it like me carrying in my groceries. It's the number of things, an area, or me, I can carry. So, okay, so think of the bison, think of me. If there's 10 pounds of leaves, that's 1 bison. If there's 7 grocery bags, that means Miss Riddle can carry it without any help. Even though Nova is no help anyway. Alright, easy enough. I don't think this is too tricky. We're going to do a lab on it tomorrow, so hopefully that'll help you out too. But if you still need help, come up to Miss Sewell or myself, and we will happily help you. I think that's it from me. If you have any questions, come to us, look at the front whiteboard, go back to Google Classroom, and I hope that was educational.